I would like to share a modern-day parable I will call the parable of the oranges. As you listen, consider what this story teaches you about the power of real intent. There was a young man who had ambitions to work for a company because it paid very well, and it was very prestigious. He prepared his resume and had several interviews. Eventually, he was given an entry-level position. Then he turned his ambition to the next goal, a supervisor position that would afford him even greater prestige and more pay. So he completed the tasks that were given him. He came in early some mornings, and he stayed late so the boss would see him putting in long hours. And after 5 years, the supervisor position became available. But to the young man's great dismay, another employee who had only worked for the company for 6 months was given the promotion. The young man was very angry, and he went to the boss and he demanded an explanation. The wise boss said, "Before I answer your questions, would you do a favor for me?" "Yes, sure," said the employee. "Would you go to the store and buy some oranges? My wife needs them." The young man agreed and went to the store. When he returned, the boss asked, "What kind of oranges did you buy?" "I don't know," the young man replied. "You just said buy oranges, and these are oranges. Here they are." "How much did they cost?" the boss asked. "Well, I'm not sure," was the reply. "You gave me $30, and here's your receipt, and here's your change." "Thank you," said the boss. "Now, please, have a seat and pay careful attention." Then the boss called the employee who had received the promotion, and he asked him to do the same job. He readily agreed, and he went to the store. When he returned, the boss asked, "What kind of oranges did you buy?" "Well," he replied, "the store had many varieties. There were navel oranges, and there were Valencia oranges, and there were blood oranges, and there were tangerines and many others, and I didn't know which kind to buy. But I remembered you said your wife needed the oranges, so I called her. She said she was having a party and that she was going to make orange juice. So I asked the grocer which of all of these oranges make the best orange juice. He said the Valencia orange was full of very sweet juice. So that's what I bought. I dropped them by your home on my way back to the office. Your wife was very pleased." "How much did they cost?" the boss asked. "Well, that was another problem. I didn't know how many to buy. So, once again, I called your wife and I asked her how many guests was she expecting. So, she said she was expecting around 20, and I asked the grocer how many oranges would be needed to make juice for 20 people. And it was a lot. So I asked the grocer if he could give me a quantity discount, and he did. These oranges normally cost 75 cents, but I paid only 50 cents each. Here is your change, and here's your receipt." The boss smiled and said, "Thank you. You may go." He looked over at the young man who had been watching. The young man stood up, slumped his shoulders, and said, "I see what you mean," as he walked dejectedly out of the office. What was the difference between these two young men? They were both asked to buy oranges, and they did. You might say that one went the extra mile, or one was more efficient, or one paid more attention to detail. But the most important difference had to do with real intent, rather than just going through the motions. The first young man was motivated by money, position, and prestige. The second young man was driven by an intense desire to please his employer and an inner commitment to be the best employee he could possibly be. And the outcome was obvious. How can you apply this parable in your lives? How might your efforts in your family, at school, at work, and in church be different if you always sought to please God and do His will, motivated by your love for Him?